Most people think they understand how women think in relationships. They don't. And that gap in understanding is responsible for more breakups, more arguments, and more silent resentment than almost anything else. So today, we're going to change that. We're going to go deep into the psychology of how women actually think when they're in a relationship. Not the stereotypes, not the myths. The real cognitive and emotional patterns backed by psychology research. Let's start with something that surprises a lot of people. Women don't just process emotions, they process context. When a woman feels something in a relationship, she's rarely reacting to just the moment in front of her. She's connecting that moment to a pattern. That pattern could go back days, weeks, or even months. So when she seems upset over something small, understand this: it's almost never about the small thing. It's about what that small thing represents in the bigger pattern she has been quietly tracking. This is called emotional memory accumulation. Women, on average, have stronger neural connections between the emotional centers of the brain and the memory centers. This means emotional experiences are stored with more detail, more texture, and they resurface more easily. In a relationship, this plays out in a very specific way. She remembers not just what happened, but how it made her feel, and whether that feeling showed up before. When you understand this, a lot of her reactions start to make complete sense. Now here's something even more important. Women in relationships are constantly, often unconsciously, evaluating emotional safety. Not physical safety, emotional safety. This is the feeling that she can be honest without being judged, that she can be vulnerable without it being used against her, that her emotions will be received and not dismissed. When emotional safety is high, women open up. They become warmer, more affectionate, more expressive. When it drops, they go quiet. They pull back. And that withdrawal is often misread as coldness or disinterest, when really it's a form of self-protection. Psychologists call this emotional attunement. Women tend to be highly attuned to shifts in emotional tone, a change in someone's voice, a different kind of silence, a subtle shift in body language. They pick up on these signals constantly. In a relationship, this means she often knows something is off before you've said a single word. She might not know exactly what, but she feels the distance, and that feeling creates anxiety because the relationship is one of the most important sources of emotional stability in her life. This brings us to one of the most misunderstood aspects of female psychology: the need for emotional connection as a foundation for everything else. For most women, emotional intimacy is not a bonus in a relationship. It is the relationship. When she feels emotionally connected to her partner, trust is high, communication flows, and she feels secure. When that emotional connection weakens, everything else weakens with it, including her interest, her energy, and her desire to engage. This is why she might seem suddenly distant even when nothing dramatic has happened. The connection has quietly eroded, and she feels it before it becomes visible. Men often ask, "Why doesn't she just say what's wrong?" And the honest psychological answer is that sometimes she doesn't have the words yet. Emotion often comes before language. She might feel a heaviness, a disconnection, a low-grade sadness, and she's still processing what it means. Asking her to immediately name it puts her in an impossible position. What she needs in that moment is not an interrogation, it's presence. Calm, unhurried presence that signals, "I'm here. Take your time." There's also a deeply ingrained psychological pattern in women around feeling valued versus feeling managed. Women are remarkably good at detecting the difference between someone who genuinely sees them and someone who is managing them to keep the peace. Hollow validation, automated responses, saying the right thing without meaning it. She registers all of it. It doesn't feel like love. It feels like performance. And over time, that performance creates distance, not closeness. What actually builds lasting connection with a woman is consistent, genuine attention. Not grand gestures, attention. Remembering something she mentioned weeks ago, noticing when her mood has shifted, asking a follow-up question on something she cares about. These are the things that land deeply in the female psychology because they communicate the one thing she needs to feel most, that she is truly seen. Here's the final thing to understand, and it might be the most important. Women in relationships are not looking for perfection. They are looking for honesty and effort. A partner who admits they got something wrong, who tries to understand, who shows up consistently even when it's uncomfortable. That is what creates deep, lasting trust in a woman's mind. Not someone who never makes mistakes, someone who cares enough to grow. Understanding how women think in relationships isn't about gaining an advantage. It's about building something real. And now, you have a much clearer picture of how to do exactly that.